Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video for you. Today we're going to take a look at a knife from Ruike Knives, and I need to say a big thank you right now to Matt over at Ruike Knives Canada. I don't know if you can see here, by the way, the little stream that's nearby. I've rolled in a little bit of footage of that so you can get a sense for exactly where I am. Really, really nice area here. Anyway, I've got the Ruike P118B here to share with you guys. I will go over some of the specs and stuff back on the tabletop rather than out here. While I'm out here, I want to give you a little bit of some cutting demonstration, talk about the features, and do some comparisons. So let's go ahead and just quickly work our way through this knife. The blade here is a high flat grind with a top swedge stonewash finish, and it is 14 C28N on the blade steel, which is actually really, really nice. Now, I wouldn't call this a survival style knife at all. However, the grind on it and the flatness of it and the effort they've made to carry some, come on, focus you. There we go. The effort they've made to carry some extra thickness out to the tip does make this knife pretty well suited to a lot of survival type tasks, although there's no really hard, sharp edges where you can strike a ferro rod. Not that, you know, I rarely ever have to do that because I have lighter matches. But the other thing is, you know, this is not maybe the most suited for batoning or anything like that. I will show you that it can get some of that kind of work done. So let me grab, there was a tree here. There's been some high water. And as you guys, I'm sure, have often observed, high water will really tear up some of the vegetation. And so this branch was kind of torn off. And so I went and cut out of the torn off part a little piece that I could do some cutting demonstration with. You can see it's still pretty green, but notice how nicely this just slices that material. You could do some super, super fine feather sticks if you needed to. Really good cutter, and that's what I have to say I kind of appreciate about this knife, is it's really well balanced. So it slices really well. You could even use this a bit in the kitchen, but if you're out camping, if you're doing some survival type stuff, some bushcrafting stuff, it's absolutely suitable for that, maybe just not entirely perfect. And let me say this while we're on that subject, if they would do sort of a bushcraft version of this knife, I think it would be really, really cool. And I'll talk at the end back on the tabletop about what I would like to see if they were going to do that. Okay, so we've got about a 4-inch blade here. As I say, nice flat grind, very, very ergonomic handle. And of course, if you're going to do any kind of heavy duty, hard use cutting, the comfort on that handle is really, really important. Now, let me say, anyone looking at this knife can tell there's certainly a tactical flair, if you will, to this design. You know, you've got that deep front choil, you've got jimping on the back, you've got that swedge to thin out the tip for piercing. So I get that, and certainly the extremely positive grip is going to make it really well suited to that. I'm going to go and do one other thing with this before we kind of move on to some other things, but in a small piece of wood, and by the way, this works really, really well. Okay, you can pop that into a piece of wood, just break it apart. And in a lighter use knife, that's the only kind of batoning I'm really going to be likely to do here. Just enough to break down something and give me a little bit of, you know, kindling, stuff like that. Or now take this piece and go ahead and do your curly cues to do some feather sticks. You know, that kind of thing. I find a knife like this really works well for, and really that's where I like to use a knife in the bush if I'm starting a fire. Anything bigger, you know, if I'm chopping this apart, I stuck this in the snow in the meantime, but I'm going to use a hatchet for that. Okay, so 14C28N blade, contoured G10 on the handle, full tang construction, all of that is really, really nice. The other thing I want to show you while we're out here before we get to the comparisons is the sheath, and this sheath is really, really nicely done. It's just a high strength plastic, but the retention is very good. Let me shake it around a little. You can hear that there's no movement whatsoever, which is really, really nice. Quite solid in terms of how it goes in. The other thing is, look how thin this is. So if you wanted to, say, strap this onto a pack, or even carry it in a pocket, you could absolutely do it. You know, just pop this clip off of this and just carry it like that, or lash it to something. That would work really, really well. Now let me though talk about this clip. This is my favorite style of clip. And I'll show you why. So I've got it set up so I can just clip this onto my belt, which I like, but you can move this all the way around and it just locks into those various positions. And that, I think, is huge. I absolutely love the way that they've configured this sheath. It gives you so much freedom in terms of how you want to carry the knife. And of course, this is set up sort of for a right-hand draw, you know, either sort of kidney carry or belt carry on your right side in that configuration. But pop those screws out, flip it over to the other side, and you've got a really nice setup for, you know, across the back sort of scout carry. Now, while we're out here, let's go ahead and do some comparisons. I think that's worthwhile. So set the blade down here, and let's grab a couple of other knives that you're probably familiar with. So here is the SE6. Now this is definitely more comparable to an SE4, but I wanted to bring these both out because both of these represent what I like out of a knife, okay? Neither one of these are giant choppers. Neither one of these are meant for, you know, just beating on, although the SE will take a real beating and this one has. Both of these are more designed to be cutting style blades. And those are the kind of knives I like, because if I go out to the forest, I always bring a hatchet or, you know, maybe a heavy machete or something else. Most often though, a hatchet or an axe or a saw. And a lot of times, and you guys can let me know, I've talked about this in videos before, but the way I like to do it is to bring a folding saw, a small hatchet, and then a small knife like this that I'm going to use in those final stages, making fire sticks and stuff like that. And so both of these knives kind of fit that role more so than a heavy chopping type of application. Another great knife that you guys know I adore, this is the Tops Idaho Hunter. See if I can get both of these on the log without dropping either one of them into the snow. And look at that. Similar blade length, obviously a lot more handle real estate here. And I have to say this, I feel like every time I have this knife on camera, I have to point out that this handle looks really, really weird, but it is probably the most comfortable handle that I have ever experienced on a knife. It just fits the hand so perfectly. And as soon as I got this knife in hand, I was immediately just enamored with it. So another good comparison, similar blade size there. Again, this knife is geared more toward the survival outdoor use. And if they would make some very minor changes, this could be a real contender in terms of being totally excellent for that. Now, let's sort of switch away so you guys get the opposite extreme here. I've got the Schrade SCH, hold on. There we go. I've got the Schrade SCH F52 here, and this is more of a survival style knife. It's big and heavy. It can do some chopping. It's even got a handle that's designed to sort of create a loop there so you can get some wrist action going. This is the kind of knife that is designed to sort of try and do everything in the bush. And frankly, I tend to steer away from that. You know, I may bring this, let's say I'm going on like a half-day hike or something where I know I'm not going to be processing any serious amount of wood. I know I'm not going to be doing anything crazy. Then I might bring a knife like this. Because yeah, if I do need to chop, I can do it. If I need to do some carving, I can still do it, although it's not really perfect for that. So this is, to me, trying to stretch a knife outside of what it's really intended for. It does okay, and again, you know, when you get that jack of all trades, master of none type of mentality, I prefer to take the specific tool that I want for the job that I'm doing. All right, guys, so there you go. You've seen this out in the field a little bit. We've seen some cutting, we've seen some comparisons. Let's go back and take a look at this on the tabletop so I can have a little further discussion. I'll give you the specs, as well as if anyone from Ruike is watching, I'd love to just kind of do a quick once over of what could be with this knife for a nearly perfect outdoor survival style fixed blade. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys back here in the comfort of the office. Just want to quickly go over the specs and then one little discussion at the end before I give you my final conclusion. So Very quickly, this knife is 8 3/4 inches overall, 4 3/8 on the blade, 4 3/8 on the handle, weighs in at 6.9 inches wow, 6.9 ounces outside of the sheath, and 10.2 ounces once you add the sheath. Now that would change, of course, if you took this off, depending on how you're going to carry it, but that's, of course, with the clip on it, which I am quite a big fan of, as we've already discussed. Finally, want to point out, oh yeah, grip area here is 3 5/8, so it's a little smaller grip area for a knife of this size. I have size large hands, and it works really, really well for me, but I think much larger hands than mine, you might start to be a little bit cramped in terms of real estate for your fingers there. As I will say, really, really comfortable though. Now that we've got the specs there, I would like to just have a very short discussion with you about what could be done to this knife to maybe make a, you know, this is the F118B. Well, maybe we could do like the 118C or something. This would be fantastic as a bushcraft, a full outdoor use knife with a couple very, very small changes. All right, drop the swedge and just go with a 90-degree bevel there on the back spine, or a 90-degree corner on the back spine, and that would allow you to, one, carry a little bit more material out to the tip, and two, have a good spot for sparking a ferro rod. The handle itself is quite good in general, but it would be nice to see take this and just move it up here so that you get a little bit of a spot to choke up on the blade there. And finally, the pommel. This is a decent location for sort of a striker, but it'd be nice to move it down just a little bit more. So if you're, you know, breaking nuts open or pounding on something in the bush, you've got a little more sort of readily available spot to do that. So really, with those couple of little changes, this could be just a fantastic outdoor use knife. As it stands, it's still great for outdoor use, but it has the versatility of also functioning well as, say, you know, a first responder, member of the military, law enforcement, something like that, where you may need a defensive knife, or I suppose any regular person who needs a defensive knife, although probably most of you who would carry this knife as a defensive option could carry a firearm, and so that would be the better way to go. But it certainly has those tactical nods as well, which I think will make this somewhat popular. There is a draw to that style of knife, perhaps even a greater draw to that style of knife than to a sort of full-on bushcraft outdoor use knife. Let me say, by way of conclusion, that I find this knife to be fantastic. I've put a lot of different use on this knife. You saw me doing some stuff out in the bush. I've started some fires with it. I've also used it around the kitchen. I can't tell you how many times. Now, you know, I'm sure all of us are guilty of this from time to time. My kitchen knives kind of really suck. And so every once in a while I'll be doing something and need a really sharp knife, and I'll be like, oh man, I've got to go get something from the collection. And this one has filled that role a few times and works really, really well because it's thin enough behind the edge. Even though it's a little thicker in the stock, it still slices so, so well. So it's just an utility tool. It's fantastic. Probably a little big for EDC, but in certain environments you could definitely get away with it. And so yeah, overall, I'm really, really a fan of this knife. I highly recommend it. The price is quite good. I think it goes for around $100 Canadian, which is, you know, probably 60 or 70 US dollars. So yeah, highly, highly recommend this. Of course, I would say go over to Rake Knives Canada and pick one up. I will put a link in the description box below. Don't forget to like, subscribe. I'd love to hear your comments down below. Do you agree with me about my sort of philosophy in the bush? You know, I'm more likely to carry a knife like this along with a saw and a hatchet than I am to carry like one big heavy chopper knife and try to do everything with it. Let me know if you agree with that philosophy down below, as well as anything else you'd like to see. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you soon.